In this world, everyone hopes to become a martial arts expert of the pinnacle realm, but not everyone has the talent to achieve their dreams. Young kids fantasize about becoming heroes, and the same can be said for Tang Mujin, a 20-year-old young man who makes the finest acupuncture needles for a supreme martial artist and becomes a disciple under his wing. But to get here, let's revisit Mujin's current lifestyle. He's a silent routine worker who wakes up early and finishes preparations before breakfast. Physician Tang, his father, is regarded as the greatest doctor in the region and is Mujin's role model. Mujin aspires to follow in his father's footsteps, but can't help himself from getting into trouble. That's how he got a black eye, which makes his homeboy Zhang Guok make fun of his ass. And just like any best friend, Guok thinks it would have been way funnier if Mujin's other eye was smacked as well. Suddenly, his friend recommends a giant-ass mushroom straight out of Mario. It's an expensive shroom that allows for a psychedelic experience, allowing people to experience amazing dreams. Mujin thinks it's a joke at first, but when he hears that he can live out the glory of a supreme martial artist, this man devours the entire mushroom whole when he was only meant to eat a small part. Bro is out here thinking he's gonna become Shiru Emiya and unlocked his reality marble unlimited blade works as the master of the swords, when in reality, nothing happens at all. Or so he thinks, because the effects start to quick in, making him dizzy and knocking him out. In his dream, a beefy old blacksmith regarded as the greatest one under the realm is hammering perfection. Tang Mujin thinks it's him, but suddenly remembers that it's actually supposed to be Uyezi. He retains his awareness of what happened, but still goes on to craft the 5 master swords requested by the king. This final work will be regarded as his life's legacy. In the end, the 5 swords are completed after 20 years of work, granting Uyezi a reward befitting his achievement. The heavens grant him immortality and celebrate the day he climbs to paradise. The dream sequence ends there with our boy collapsing on the floor. When he wakes up, he hears an angry customer raging out of his father's clinic. He asks Guok what happened and learns that Mujin was knocked out for a while and luckily woke up without any problems. Guok is hoping to God that Mujin doesn't expose him for possessing a crazy shroom, because that's the last thing you want to be saying to a physician. Pondering if the dream was real or not, Mujin goes to his father but reacts strangely to a needle he's holding. His head is about to explode as a gush of memories flood down on him. The angry customer apparently left because of the thickness of the needles, making it a painful acupuncture process. The old man looks around for the quality of his previous needles and reveals how thin one is from the other. Again, Mujin's body reacts strangely to the form of both needles, and he can't stop the ringing noise in his head. Bro ate a shroom and suddenly became a schizo patient himself. The boy quickly grabs the needle from his father's hand and rages with fury, insulting the needle's quality. Mujin's headache is out of this world. His head is ringing every time he sees an imperfect-looking item. In this case, one of the needles he's holding in his hands is pinching his brain out. Making his way past the people of the town, our boy struggles to hold his own, reflecting how he didn't have this ability the other day. But now that he's acquired such a power, or should I say the headache curse, Bro is practically buzzing out and hearing imperfect items calling out to him from everywhere. It's like Superman getting used to his super hearing ability for the first time. It's extremely agitating and Mujin can't take it anymore amidst the bustling crowd. His head is at the verge of bursting out, and the pain is getting so bad he's pinching his lips, reflecting how so many items look dog shit in his eyes. At the same time, among those imperfections, one tiny little needle energizes him and gives this man a sense of clarity. This is thanks to one man's efforts, the majestic blacksmith Siok with a skill second to none. Our boy settles in with the beaming clarity, but strangely, an air of realization hits him. You see, he shouldn't know about the blacksmith's work to begin with. Secondly, the other needle, the one that's making him lose his mind, is also the work of the same man. So what's going on? What's truly different about it? To answer this question, our boy puts one foot ahead of the other to seek the truth. In the next scene, we get to see a huge establishment with a chimney exhausting about. Here, when our boy sees the perfectly crafted items of the blacksmith, all of his irritation disappears. Instead, he's filled with clarity and a beaming sense of happiness, all thanks to one guy's perfected craftsmanship. While he's out here cuddling a damn sword, the woman in the background is probably starting to question if he's sword sexual or not. Suddenly, our boy decides to take a closer look at the weapon, and immediately starts connecting the dots with the dream he had of Uyezi. Thanks to the shrooms, Mujin is now capable of recognizing the true mastery of the blacksmith's skill. But that's not all, because the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that this beefy grandpa with an arm bigger than my head is clear in his memory. It's as if Mujin has personally seen Siok's godlike work in person, as if he was there to witness his every move. Again, Mujin struggles to connect the dots, wondering if the dream has something to do with all of this, because he's out here receiving memories that he didn't even have before. But when you think about it, just like any person, Bro comes to one conclusion: it's just a damn dream, so there couldn't be anything special about it. After all, it's ridiculous to assume that he could learn to be a blacksmith from one silly little dream. The very thought makes him disappointed, believing that if it was the case, then his idiot friend Zhang Guan would be a top-tier martial artist by now. Bro basically said the shrooms are bullshit. Still, Mujin can't help but take a bold step to confirm his destiny by his own hands, believing that if he can go search for Blacksmith Siok, he can obtain a bunch of answers. But in the very next scene, Bro is getting shouted at the top of his lungs. You see, the man standing before him is none other than Seok's son, Ji Seung, and while he's also a blacksmith, he doesn't hold a candle to his father's godlike skills. However, the man is offended at the thought that Moojin came to complain about his skill because of one needle. Quivering in fear, our boy clarifies that he never really made such a claim, but Jisung is roaring with rage. Anyway, our boy has already confirmed that the original gangster blacksmith has retired, which is also the reason why it's hard to come by his craftsmanship these days. Jisung stops to admit that he's nowhere near his father's caliber, and he finds it a pain in the ass that the physicians are now bullying him too. Offering a challenge to the boy, the blacksmith dares him to scan and find Seok's original works among his shop. After all, he's all the more excited to learn what makes Moojin's critique so special if there truly is that much of a difference. But you see, here is where this guy fucked up, thinking that Moojin is an ordinary person. But in the next few moments, the boy collects all of the premium-looking blades, clearly because they could call out to him. This causes Jisung to feel utterly terrified, questioning how Moojin was able to collect everything in the span of a few moments. Ordinarily, other people actually disregard the same swords, thinking that they're too simple-looking. But Moojin, he cooked, ate, and left no crumbs. Funnily enough, our boy knows that if he had failed the challenge, he would have been seriously mocked by Seok's son. But now that he has personally applied his new power in action, he knows that the dream he had is no longer a delusion, but now a part of his reality. Jisung admits that he thought of the kid as a lousy customer at first, and settles down to agree that the needle isn't as great. Once again, even after being challenged, the boy did end up finding Seok's works in the shop. This makes the blacksmith wonder if the boy's scanning abilities surpass even that of his own, which also means that anything that Jisung puts out as an act of creation will be seen as mediocre in Moojin's eyes. Bro is suffering from success, I guess. And if that is the case, Jisung suggests that the boy create something himself, whipping out his hammer and leaving it in Moojin's hands. Our boy is wondering how that even makes sense and takes a good look at the hammer. Jisung eggs him on, stating that if the boy doesn't do it on his own, he's gonna have to settle with the shitty needles that the blacksmith has already supplied. Instead of objecting, in response, our boy actually accepts, believing that it's his one opportunity to test his abilities of being a blacksmith. Moojin tears off his uniform to get busy with work, but the equipment comes natural to him as he casually blows the mold in motion. Though he's acting all tough right now, our boy fully understands that knowledge from one damn dream won't be enough to transfer to his practical experience. Taking a leap of faith, the boy holds the hammer sky high, drawing a comparison that what he's doing is similar to requesting a patient to prepare their own medicine. The heavy hammer slams the mold, as Moojin's heart craves the process even more and more, surprising Jisung with the boy's concentrated stance. That perfect posture as he nails the hammer down, only to draw it back up again with a smile on his face. Yet again, the boy has confirmed that his skills from the dream have transferred to reality. As for the arrogant Jisung, the great son of the blacksmith Seok stands utterly puzzled. He was waiting to make a fool out of the boy, but this man has been humbled with the boy's every swing. Different from a physician, the boy appears to have a godlike talent for smithing, much like Seok, the man who spent an entire lifetime in metal forging. Every time the boy strikes with the hammer, Jisung hears a pleasant musical note. This is what you call perfection, ladies and gentlemen. It's as if Jisung were witnessing the very reincarnation of Uyezi before his eyes. It's not the case of talent, but something way beyond it. Recall that mold? Moojin has turned that into a beautiful slab, and his work inspires Jisung to see more of his capabilities. He wants to see Moojin do everything, from striking to quenching to tempering to even sharpening the blade. Bro went from being the biggest D1 hater to glazing the same kid in the same scene. Moojin inspects the slab and tosses it in front of the blacksmith, who is dying to see what the kid's imagination is capable of. The kid naturally orders the blacksmith to melt his beautiful piece of creation, which is a strange request in Jisung's eyes. Our boy actually reveals that so far, he was doing warm-up, implying that there's even a greater line of perfection he can reach beyond what he just created. After hearing those words, the blacksmith is utterly stupefied. In the very next scene, the perfected thin needles are used in the acupuncture treatment for the same high-profile clients. This time, the process is painless, and after seeing how smooth it is, a whole bunch of customers start lining up back to back. The needle is so thin that they can't even feel it. It truly makes them worship the physician's skills. And at this point, the line of customers is so long that one can only assume that Moojin's father is getting easy money from it. The scene transitions from the town, zooming out to show us what's going on other fronts. A pair of travelers is journeying their way to a destination. One of them remarks that they should have visited the great Tang family clinic before leaving the city for a treatment. But unfortunately, the queue was so long that they had to make amends. They seem to pass by a particular man minding his own business, who after hearing such a thing, decides to go and take a visit for himself. Back to the city, the Tang family clinic is practically flooded with queues of people, to the point some have started beefing with each other for cutting in line. Among the murmuring of the crowd, one particular man seems to have terrified everyone. When Moojin comes out to check what's up, Bro sees a blade pinned against a guy's neck. Remember that badass uncle from earlier? He's the one causing the scene with a big smile on his face. Our boy quickly realizes that a fight's breaking out between two martial artists. The same purple-robed man decides to entertain the crowd with his skill. Except, he literally slices open the guy's skin, causing it to spurt out blood and forcing the boy to jump in. Mujin does his best to stop the bleeding, only to have his eyes widened in shock. The bitch left a carving on his victim's skin. The words, "eccentric physician," are printed on his chest. The shocking part is how he was able to do that with just one freaking slash, without causing any serious damage to the body. This display of skill confirms to the boy that he's dealing with a seasoned martial artist, and something tells him that he's heard the words "eccentric physician" somewhere before. Imagine you're beefing with a guy and the dude leaves a permanent scar tattoo of his name on your chest. I'd be pissed as hell. The martial artist makes a mockery of his victim, laughing at him for fainting after a tiny cut. Amusingly, he thinks it's barely a scratch, but I think this guy's idea of a tiny scratch is fucked up. Suddenly, he reveals his true nature. Bro is out here giving massive Akuma energy with that raw-ass aura farming pose and hairstyle. The dots connect at last. Mujin realizes he's the notorious physician killer called Lee Chung. Let's take a break and revisit the boy's childhood. You see, growing up, his dad was his champion and hero, always appearing as his role model. Though he wasn't the greatest physician of all time, the guy still held his own like a beautiful tree with a strong foundation, one that could be reliable even when times were tough. The man is a beast known for his resilience, and became an outstanding role model for the boy. However, Lee Chung is the complete opposite of his father's radiance. This aura farming fucker is dark, cold, and a martial artist known to have touched the heavens for his skills. He is regarded as one of the 3 greatest physicians in the world, a strange man who has the capacity to change the fate of people through not only his medicine, but also his blade. Though he's known for his murderous streak, many say that he doesn't discriminate if his victims are evil or not. If anything, bro is Dexter Morgan, a serial killer who hunts down other physicians around the world. The fact that he's here means to imply only one thing: that Mujin's father is actually in danger. The boy quickly realizes that Lee Chung is actually headed to the physician's chambers. Expressing a completely normal reaction in this situation, Mujin roars in concern for his old man. But before he can stop the eccentric physician, the boy is stopped by Jin Song, a Qing Cheng sect instructor, who believes that this situation is out of their hands. Seeing the head instructor fold so casually like that has the boy wondering if they can use the branch leader to try and persuade the murderous martial artist. Pathetically, Jin Song admits that not even his master would agree to face the eccentric physician in any way. That is the true terror of one man, who is actively known as a criminal despite his physician background. Shockingly, the boy also learns that at some point, the eccentric physician actually became responsible for saving the branch leader's life, adding another reason for him not to stop him. In the end, the boy collapses in defeat, thinking that his father's gonna meet his inevitable end. It's a truly sad fate, when you're confronted with a reality that you cannot change even with the best of your abilities, and I hope you guys never have to experience such hardships in your lives. Anyway, Jin Song assures the boy that he shouldn't be supremely worried about his father's impending doom. After all, the eccentric physician may be a serial killer, but he's not one-sidedly evil. Moments after, the devil slams the door open, surprising both of them. It appears that Lee Chung has a really satisfied look on his face as he makes his way to Mujin. The boy takes one glance at the man's clothes and finds himself relieved, understanding that nothing bad must have happened. However, with one situation resolved, comes another when the martial artist grabs the boy's shoulder, sharing how he learned about a competent blacksmith nearby from Mujin's father. Lee Chung is hoping that Mujin will be a good boy and take him to the blacksmith. And well, our boy looks like he's shitting bricks in fear, so he accepts without arguing. The eccentric physician is glad to hear that and hopes the boy will be a convenient guide. Meanwhile, Mujin is losing his mind looking at the man's blade. Seeing that the boy is lost in his thoughts, the intimidating martial artist basically gives him a threatening smile, wondering if the kid is gonna start moving or not. Mujin folds instantly, and so in the very next scene, we're brought to the workshop, where the eccentric physician finds himself completely baffled to learn that it was actually Mujin who made those needles. The moment the boy confirms the idea, this man starts laughing like he just heard the silliest your mom joke. Despite his many years of hearing ridiculous shit, the idea that the son of a physician ended up with the skills of a blacksmith is straight up hilarious to this man. Bro has lost it to the point he's tearing up in response. Impressed with the boy's skills, the martial artist places a special order of 30 acupuncture needles. As for his payment, he leaves a ridiculously valuable gold ingot. Its very shine startles Mujin and he grabs his payment right away, thanking him and even promising to finish the order before sunset. But this fact leaves the eccentric physician at a loss for words. The fact that the boy is capable of delivering the order within the same day it is placed, instead of delaying it for months, shows his competence. Even experienced blacksmiths tend to delay, but this kid is out here channeling Sid's greed from eminence in the shadow. Anyway, the eccentric physician fails to understand how the son of a physician is so damn confident in delivering a complex order in one day. But for our boy, it's a piece of cake and he feels no pressure than all, promising to deliver needles even better than the ones he made for his dad. He gives the man his word, promising to complete the order to the best of his ability. A moment of silence follows, and right as it seems like the martial artist is about to cut their heads using his blade, he decides to sit down in peace instead. Meanwhile, Mujin is out here having PTSD, realizing that if he doesn't keep his word, this grinning bastard is really gonna kill him. Shortly afterward, the incredible process begins while the customer gets the front seat to its creation. Now, Lee Chung is questioning how the boy is going to tackle everything, because creating acupuncture needles isn't a walk in the park. It requires creating wire, then picking the best pieces, before grinding it all down. Based on the needles he saw at Physician Tang's quarters, he knows for a fact that they weren't invented out of luck but pure dedication. That's why he's personally invested in seeing Mujin forging them before his eyes. Interestingly, the martial artist observes our boy's ripped physique, despite his background as a physician. But then, he notices something. The boy's grip on the hammer curls strongly before it powers down on the mold, captivating Lee Chung's attention. Mujin keeps hammering again and again, displaying excellence with his every motion. In Lee Chung's eyes, he's witnessing perfection. In a little while after, it's all done. Mujin's wrapped up with his product. But this same grinning, psychotic old man has another offer for the boy. He's paying Mujin to officially become his disciple, which is crazy. The boy wonders why, while Lee Chung thinks the answer is obvious. He thinks the kid's talent is going to be wasted in a pointless town here, when instead he should be honing his skills. He's hoping for Mujin to accept, but the kid doesn't seem to reciprocate the same feeling, highlighting that he's got personal duties to attend to. Not just that, he's only new to the forge and doesn't really know what's there to gain by becoming the eccentric physician's disciple. The boy's confusion makes the old martial artist snicker, and instead of explaining with words, he demonstrates what he'll be learning. In the span of a few moments, it appears that Lee Chung has already made his move, and he casually admits that there are 2 things he can offer to teach his disciple. By the way, this entire time he's having a conversation with Mujin, the deadly martial artist has not only sliced an object, but he also left a few needles on Jiseong's neck. This is a testament to this man's godlike speed, leaving our boy questioning what even happened. So, the seasoned sensei wonders if the boy is willing to change his mind now. Of course, for Mujin, this is a top-tier offer. Keep in mind that aside from being a crazy killer, Lee Chung is still considered one of the best physicians in the world. With this, he'll hone 2 skills at once, and even revel in glory being known as the student of the eccentric physician. Bro is out here in Delulu land thinking that his family's clinic will become unstoppable in that outcome. However, there is one thing bothering Mujin. Why him, and why not any other person? Murder Machine Grandpa over here keeps it simple and says that he just wants a skilled blacksmith, and in exchange he's willing to offer his knowledge and experience. All of a sudden, our boy is starting to realize that he's being forced into a contractual relationship, if anything. To test the boy even further, the eccentric physician comes up with a hypothetical situation, wondering how Mujin would treat someone with a shivering body and a weak chi. To that, Mujin responds appropriately by saying that fixing one's fluid imbalance takes top priority, and then strategically prescribing medicine is the second step. Once again, a perfect answer by the boy. The martial artist believes that if this kid has the commitment to memorize long-ass texts in medicine, then he can easily learn martial arts too. While Mujin has no idea why that comparison is being pulled out of his ass, the master comes up with another question. Lee Chung explains that strength isn't the only thing when it comes to martial arts, which is how most people treat martial arts. He doesn't want anything to do with fools who can't make anything out of his exceptional knowledge, believing that those people are fools who remain average forever. In the same manner, he says that only a fine expert can spot the difference between an average needle compared to a specially crafted one. Finally, Mujin decides to ask an ambitious question, wondering if he too can become a first-rate martial artist like him. The question is intriguing, but the master answers that it always depends on the teachings of a teacher, basically glazing himself that with him, Mujin's gonna get there easier than compared to most people. It reminds me of the fact that some people really hate studying math until they get a good teacher for it. The scene transitions back to the boy returning to his family's clinic, his eyes beaming with excitement, thinking that he can attain the pinnacle realm someday too. The idea excites him so much that this happy kid is already celebrating, until he falls down with a heavy thud right in front of his father. Mujin apologizes for being late, but the boy's father simply grabs him, before his body begins trembling on his feet. Concerned, Mujin fears for his father's health, when suddenly the old man looks at him with tears in his eyes. He was so afraid when he learned about Mujin being taken away by the murderous physician. Though he didn't do anything to Physician Tang himself, he could have done anything to his child. But Mujin assures his dad that the eccentric physician is actually a chill guy who isn't as bad as the rumors suggest. Physician Tang confirms this and explains how Jinsung already made a report on how cooperative the man seemed. But he doesn't get why Mujin took so long to return when all he had to do was show Lee Chung directions to the forge. Instead of giving an essay on what happened, the boy cuts to the chase and explains that Lee Chung wants Mujin to become his official disciple. And well, that news utterly demolishes Physician Tang's expression. The man remains speechless hearing the information, while Mujin tries to spark conversation, even calling out to his father and wondering why he stopped all of a sudden. In an instant, the old man dashes with incredible speed to his quarters, only to return once more. This time he's come up with a bunch of silver. The boy glances at it in confusion, questioning what the silver has to do with anything. Physician Tang concludes that the boy should actually accept the offer. Mujin is at a loss for words, highlighting how he's needed for the clinic because they're understaffed. Besides, the kid thinks it's a lousy offer coming from the strange physician, so it's probably not that serious. However, his father assures him that their clinic won't face any trouble, believing that this is the only opportunity Mujin will ever have to leave the clinic. It's in this pivotal moment that the boy's perception of his father changed. He always thought that his father stood strong and took care of the town, but this moment made Mujin recognize one crucial understanding: that even the amazing Physician Tang used to be a boy with freedom of his own. Or at least that's how I'm interpreting the butterflies in this scene. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments. Fast forward to the beginning of the boy's training. In the past 2 days, Mujin's acquired a small circulation channeling throughout his body, a feeling that he had never experienced before. More days passed as the boy meditated, honing his energy. Every day spent training felt like a path towards progress. His father's words still linger in his mind, and in a way he's very grateful for him. A nut falls down onto his head, causing Mujin to look up. It's his master, who wonders if the boy's already missing his old home. Instead of answering directly, Mujin shares that he's progressed in his internal energy in his training so far. Lee Chung is glad to hear that, but Mujin is starting to get overconfident, wondering if he's truly talented in the art of his training. His master doesn't know if that's right yet, pointing out that his performance is roughly average. However, Mujin did end up with a small circulation in only 2 days, while the ordinary person takes at least 10 to achieve that goal. This means something, and makes the boy wonder if the whole dream sequence was legit or not. While he's daydreaming about how good he is, the eccentric physician tosses him a sword, urging the boy to prove his talent with the swing of a sword. Lee Chung whips out the almighty universal stick of destruction in response, which is a bit overkill in my opinion. Anyway, the master makes a bet that if our boy even lands a single cut on his clothes, he'll happily carry the kid to their destination. Lee Chung's fiercely focused determination has our boy grimacing in fear. Mujin takes a second to digest that he's really being handed a real sword. The stakes are real, and he's even cocky because of his basic advancement training. Right as he's making conversation, the boy finds an opportune moment to attack his master right as he's distracted. Mujin aims for a beautiful swing, while his master dozes off, cleaning his ear. Lee Chung is surprised the kid is aiming for a quick victory, and wonders if the boy has a mix of talent and momentum. But right as Mujin is making his swing, the master doesn't dare to move from his position, and merely responds with the godly stick. Strangely, when Mujin's sword makes contact with the stick, it fails to cut through. This revelation is shocking for the boy, because he thinks it's just an ordinary stick that should break easily. But he forgot about the fact that the almighty universal stick of destruction has been through many isekai stories covered on our channel. It ain't gonna fold like that. Then, Lee Chung happily advises the boy to bite down on his molars, implying that the next attack is gonna hurt like hell. The martial artist unleashes a torrential current, spiraling Mujin's body with such an incredible force that he's knocked the heck away with just a simple deflect. The kid flops to the ground and throws up, having come face to face with someone else's internal energy. In a way, this fight ends up demolishing Mujin's morale, because he complains whining about the fact that the person with more energy would always come out on top in a fight. His master laughs and somewhat agrees, but he points out an interesting fact. Not even Lee Chung has access to high energy reserves, which is the reason he doesn't like prioritizing strength. But just like what he said earlier, martial arts isn't about strength alone. He even thinks that his disciple is doing just fine for a physician's kid with no experience. He even teases the boy for having a secret enemy he wants to beat up. But Mujin is out here being a Debbie Downer, pissed off that he can't be a peak martial artist as fast as he thought he would. Knowing that internal energy plays a big role, the kid is demoralized into thinking that he'll never make it into the domain of a peak martial artist anymore. But Sensei over here comes and whacks his head and nearly kills the kid with the powerful stick, stating that there are more than one path to become a master, and that high internal energy is just one of those many paths. Lee Chung recalls what happened earlier. When the boy made contact with his opponent's internal energy, there was a moment where he could have reacted with internal energy of his own by imbuing it in his sword, but he stopped. In the eyes of the master, it's a good thing. He urges Mujin to strike one more time, and this time he promises not to use any internal energy. Though the boy is nervous, this specific condition gives him just enough confidence to dare and try again. He flies ahead with a mighty swing. The tip of his blade manages to sink into the stick. Mujin's pretty happy, until he feels yet another gush of internal energy exerting from his master, who blasts the boy away in a daze. While the kid is nearly passed out, his master explains his fatal error. Mujin thought he could win based on internal energy alone, and would have died all the same. He brings into question the boy's slow speed of accumulating internal energy. And if that wasn't a downside enough, the kid also doesn't have the natural aptitude to handle bundles of large energy all at once. Those two things may seem like pretty big disadvantages at first glance, but the reality is, the kid also has his share of strengths to go along with it. For example, he has excellent sensory abilities and can manipulate internal energy quickly. The kid is a lousy swordsman by comparison, but if he can imbue some of his internal energy into his weapon, he'll be capable of keeping up with second-rate martial artists. The wise master emphasizes that even wandering around aimlessly can open up a path of its own, and it makes him very happy for the boy's progress over the past 10 days. Hearing his master's words, Mujin jolts up in joy, already convinced that he's near the level of a second-rate martial artist, when that's not even the case yet. Suddenly their conversation is interrupted by a distant sound. At first they assume it's a wild beast, but then realize it's actually a human. In the distance, there's a guy wearing a peculiar uniform with 3 knots tied around his robe. Now I know it seems like bro is autistic or some shit, but trust me, it's more than that. It's supposed to signify the rank of a branch master. Lee Chung is wary, while Mujin is excited to see an amazing martial artist. Belonging from the Jewel village, Red Beggar Hong Jusan reveals his search for a physician. Apparently, there have been an alarming number of sudden deaths in their village. Apparently, Hong Jusan couldn't find any luck searching around because he's never left his village his entire life. The good thing is that he's safe from the disease. Jusan explains that he and his master lucked out, but about a month ago, the people of the village suddenly began suffering from an unknown illness. First, it was believed to be a seasonal cough, but the count didn't stop. People fell incredibly ill, to the point that 20 of them couldn't make it. At first, Jusan wanted to join the villagers who intended to leave the village for good, but in his heart of hearts, couldn't abandon his hometown, which is why he stayed behind and spent all his efforts helping his master. At first, their local physician was helping them out, but the moment he ran out of medicine, it was game over. The guy left the village stating he was going to go and collect some herbs for the medicine, but he hasn't returned in a while. That's why Jusan is eternally grateful to these physicians who agreed to help them. The party arrives in the seemingly unremarkable village. Here, the village guardian greets them. Hongyun takes them inside to a patient who is suffering from the same disease. The kid's condition is a cause for concern, which is why Mujin immediately checks on the poor guy's pulse. He can tell that the kid is sweating beyond the normal rate, and that he shares a weak pulse with a fast beating. Judging from his body temperature, he concludes that the kid's chi is being pulled towards his head. He curiously asks if the boy recently vomited, and learns that he died out of dizziness. Meanwhile, the eccentric physician is puzzled in thoughts of his own, when suddenly, Mujin concludes his findings, believing that this is the result of a plague. For a proper diagnosis, the boy thinks that they're dealing with something comparable to a summer's flu, but it's slightly different, evidenced by its strange smell. At the same time, Mujin reveals that leaving the boy unattended will put him at risk of suffering permanent brain damage or losing his eyesight. That's why the best course of action is to use acupuncture as a remedy, concentrating on specific points. Alongside his methods for a treatment, Mujin also lists out a bunch of medicines as his prescription, and I'll do you guys a favor and skip the names for them. Mujin's words captivate the attention of his master, who is impressed and orders him to begin the treatment. Though nervous, our boy immediately picks out his needle. Though his knowledge is on point, the thing about Mujin is that he's never performed acupuncture before in his life. He knows where the foot's chi point is, but his hand trembles in his lack of experience. Li Chung notes this and decides to point his fingers aiming at Mujin's hand. Exuding some of his chi, he amusingly explains that internal energy can be used beyond the scope of martial arts. He thinks that a physician will benefit greatly from his understanding of it. Suddenly, Mujin's body experiences a thrilling sensation. His master's chi is acting like a roadmap, slowly guiding his own and with pristine clarity. Thanks to this experience, the physician is able to spot the corrupt energy called the deathly chi. Now that the kid knows what to do, Li Chung instructs him to continue on with his procedure and to trust his instincts. Our boy does exactly that and connects the needle on the foot, following up with even more needles throughout the patient's body. Li Chung watches closely as his disciple finishes up with the treatment. He patiently waits for the patient to open his eyes, who is still trembling from the experience. That same deathly chi inhabiting the patient's mind is slowly expunged, cleaning the child's body and also putting him out of harm's way. With a satisfied face, Mujin takes a sigh of relief. His master is even more proud of him, sharing that his disciple has learned a lot of things in one day. But even after everything, Mujin's face is one of determination and happiness, signifying that he finally became a true physician. Later that day, we come to learn that the local village physician actually spent savings out of his own pocket just to gather herbs for the sake of his people. Physician Yam believed that bringing herbs from distant land would yield greater results, so he gave all of his money to the traders. This shows that he's actually a good man, and thanks to his courageous decision, everyone else in the village collectively started pouring in amounts to contribute to his cause. However, because of the fact that the herb traders don't visit small towns like their own, what ended up happening is that Jusan went to the mountains himself to look for a hopeful cause on his own. Even though Jusan's actions were reckless and aimless, it's because of his actions that this man's son was cured. He's glad to admit that the boy's condition is showing healthy recovery, and even allows the kind physicians to stay in the village for the night. Mujin and his master quickly go inside their lodging. Chung takes a good scan of the environment and even notices a cute doll next to his feet. Intrigued, he picks up the doll, while our boy is busy in his thoughts. Mujin finally breaks his silence, questioning the legitimacy of Physician Yom. His inquiry surprises Chung, who thinks that they can't make immediate conclusions as they haven't even met the guy. However, Mujin is at a loss and doesn't get why a sudden disease is spreading like wildfire in a village full of kind people. The villagers have prepared a feast for the physicians, but Chung thinks they shouldn't compromise their inventory and only eat sparingly. I really like how, despite boasting the reputation of a serial killer, the eccentric physician is a nice guy at heart. Sharing the meal, Mujin picks his master's brain, questioning what kind of disease they're even dealing with. Chung confirms that he doesn't really know for sure, as this one feels off in every way. It's like he's never encountered something exactly like it before. This revelation actually comes as a shock to the boy, because he's practically speaking to one of the top 3 greatest physicians ever, and even he is clueless. To that, the master enlightens his disciple that even experts don't know everything about the world. In fact, every time he learns more about something, it creates 5 more questions for him. This is pivotal for Mujin, who delusionally thought that his master knew about every single disease to ever exist in the world. Chung expresses that if that was the case, then he wouldn't be busy journeying the lands. This is an interesting revelation to Mujin, who wonders if his master is traveling the lands in search of a cure for a specific disease. Chung thinks about the question and confesses that he used to have such a desire, and even then he knows how to cure the disease now. There's no point anymore. His ominous explanation is barely touched upon when suddenly, Mujin hears the cries of someone from out in town. He knows that the village is wailing in pain, and despite his best guess, he can't yet declare a proper medicine. Pondering the patient's condition, Mujin wisely tries to understand the problem in a deeper manner. While he's lost in calculating a conclusion, his master suddenly reveals a heartbreaking story of his late wife and daughter, who became victims of an illness. Chung explains how both of them encountered an intense fever before red spots took over their bodies. Just like that, he was forced to take them to a physician and brought the most reliable doctor he knew in his village. Unfortunately, no matter who he brought, they couldn't identify a cure. In his efforts to find a cure for the disease, Lee Chung lost his family. In the span of 3 days, both of them died. This horrible story terrifies Mujin, who prays for them. But in the eyes of the wise master, he thinks of the story in a more positive light. In fact, he's moved on from his tragedy, and believes it can even be used as a humorous tale when you really get to the bottom of it. Naturally, he grieved and struggled after losing his loved ones. Lee Chung left his house in a spiral of emotions, every fiber of his being driving him towards a purpose. However, 10 days after he set out, he arrived in front of a village. He was wandering aimlessly, so it took him a long time to get there, when in reality, it really shouldn't have taken him more than a day. Interestingly, this village boasted its own local physician, and the old man smiled at him brightly, a scrawny weakling who appeared untrustworthy in every way. Despite all of that, he ended up confessing the symptoms of the disease to the physician. In response, the man said something earth-shattering. He asked for 5 coins, assuring that his family will be fine after they take his medicine. Back then, Lee Chung had a ton of money he could spend. Coins meant nothing to him. The moral of the story in Lee Chung's eyes is that his family died not because of a lack of funds, or bad doctors, or particularly that he lacked something. The reason his family met its demise is merely because other doctors couldn't possess the same knowledge as this one. And that is the humorous tale of why the cunning martial artist chose the path of a physician and became top 3 in the realm. His ultimate goal is to gather all the medical knowledge so that it can be accessible to everyone. At this point, 3 decades have passed since then, and he's long forgotten the faces of his family. Instead of setting out on a villain arc, Bro decided to have noble intentions for the world so that anyone else couldn't suffer what he did. Maybe we can all take a lesson from this story too. The young disciple carefully listens and notices the beautiful irony in his master's words and his laugh. It seemed to carry a similar weight to the anguish of the villagers' cries. The scene cuts to the following day, where Mujin sets off on a journey to identify the source of the disease by investigating outside the village. His master is intrigued and decides to join the investigation on his own. He's gonna beat Mujin's ass if he sees the boy accidentally slacking off. Anyway, the physician's kid searches around the farm and decides to investigate a well. Next up, he goes up to find the house of the old man who first contracted the disease. Let's zoom in and take a peek into Mujin's thought process. He understands that warm illnesses are fundamentally different from cold illnesses, which are responsible for cooling the body. Both show their own symptoms, but they're equally caused by the same deathly qi, which emerges in an unhygienic and cool environment. But from his findings, Mujin couldn't locate any deathly qi in the pigsty, or the well, or even the storage room. Knowing that plagues always have a starting point, he's closing in on his investigation. Just to be clear, Mujin asks to confirm if Mr. Zhong was indeed the first man to get sick aside from his neighbors. To that, Jusan expresses that the western side of the villagers experienced the sickness first, and even faster than the ones in the eastern side. Among them, children were most at risk. However, their words seem to be misaligned with Mujin's investigations. Bro is out here doing a full-blown Batman investigation at this point. He inquires if there's any fundamental difference between the 2 regions of the village, hoping to find some reasonable explanation. Jusan shares that the east side uses more yang, while the west is concentrated with yin. However, our boy thinks that it's irrelevant to the discussion, since both he and his master came from the west and didn't spot a plague at all. He's also curious why children are more susceptible. After all, children simply play with each other. Jusan agrees that the kids typically like playing in the stream close to the western region. This is a game-changer piece of information, because Mujin suddenly suspects the water to be the root cause. However, it doesn't add up why the eastern water shows no signs of trouble then. He asks why the eastern well is always dry and learns that it's only dry around the period of a spring drought. Mujin questions if the plague directly lines up with the start of the disease as well, and gets a yes from the village chief. His mind races with thoughts as he now thinks that the water might be the culprit because everyone started using the western stream after the eastern one dried up. That would explain why the children are catching the disease much faster too. So in his hunt to confirm the suspicion, Mujin heads out to the luscious flowing water of the western stream. Here he inspects it thoroughly and still doesn't detect any rough signs. There's nothing worrisome so far, even if all signs are pointing to the stream. Mujin wonders if he's being short-sighted in his process and wonders if there's another way to go about it. What he does next leaves Jusan and his master surprised. The boy decides to enter a meditative stance, channeling his qi, which is genuinely rare for a physician in their world to do. Jusan even brings this fact up to his master, ultimately trusting the physician's gut. As for our boy, we get a quick peek into his internal process as he concentrates deeper and deeper to scan the deathly qi. To his shock, he discovers the exact same variant and jumps up to conclude his findings. Mujin points ahead and sets off right away. They follow upstream, meticulously hiking all the way there in exhaustion. Suddenly, the physician senses a sharp smell, one that is even picked up on by Jusan. The smell confirms that they're growing closer and closer to whatever's lurking in the wilderness. Their travel continues until at some point, the smell becomes unbearably bad. It's so bad that even the surrounding trees are corrupting from it. The trio goes closer and closer until Mujin glances ahead and sees a graveyard of rotten ground. The place is incredibly difficult to navigate. Each step is murky and unstable. The scene darkens when the physician realizes that there's something buried just underneath the rotten ground. Before we jump in on what's going on, let's address the many deaths that occur in the storage room for herbs. You see, plants and animals are killed for the sake of medicine, and yet the medicinal storages are always preserved with a cool and refreshing odor, a scent cherished by Mujin. It's a kind of unique feeling for the boy, who thought that the storage room was a place where death opened a new path to life. Well, guess what? This place is the exact opposite of that. The boy roots out the rotten ground, only to find the remains of the dead animals and plants. This place is an example of death spreading more death. It boggles him how it all happened. For now, Mujin's plan is to dig all the corpses out and put them away from the stream. Jusan and his master are ready to do just that. They inspect a bunch of different corpses, leading Mujin to come to the conclusion that the poison must have been responsible for the illness. Different from other poisonous plants or poisons of any kind, it didn't promise an instant death. However, the person responsible for plotting everything knew exactly about the effects of the corpse poison, which is known for causing a slow and agonizing death. Everything in the story checks out. The timeline, the reality of the well always drying up, all of it is simply because the evil mastermind wanted everyone to die. The very thought makes Mujin tremble in fear, imagining the villagers' corpses. Suddenly he turns back to find a peculiar figure. It's a man who has covered his mouth carrying a bag. As you can all guess, the power of the plot twist is upon us. Remember physician Yom? This guy who sacrificed his savings to search for herbs? Yeah, that fucker's actually the one responsible for all of this. Jusan and the village leader are speechless, while our boy internalizes that only a physician with the knowledge of the town's infrastructure would be capable of pulling off a sinister scheme like this. Not just that, the scumbag also collected all the money, confirming his dual-faced nature. The man could be best described as a demon harboring the skin of a human, which sounds a lot like an angry girlfriend all of a sudden. Anyway, the trickster's greed led to the downfall of Jewel Village, costing many lives. Instead of feeling guilt or shame, Yum is ready to fight. Mujin is supremely pissed off and is ready to throw hands. But all of a sudden, the village leader goes up first, roaring at the bastard for betraying his people and creating a disease under the guise of treating them. The disgusting piece of filth responds by saying he was just getting what he deserved. His provocative words send the old man over the edge, causing him to lunge forth with the creature's head. Yom is about to get hit when suddenly the princess is saved by his trusted henchman. This guy doesn't care about shit and simply intends to wipe out the obstacles in his path. He's annoyed that they came to ruin his plans, and thinks it's only ideal for Mujin and his friends to pay the price with their own bodies. The grinning and evil old man proclaims that he fully planned to toss their corpses into the hole at some point anyway, only this time they'll go up sooner than the rest. Bro really said you guys will have early access to this shithole. The village leader stands adamant in front of the henchman. Pissed off, he prepares himself to attack. The moment he starts making his move, the henchmen are frightened. The devastated old man roars that they did all of these heinous acts behind the scenes, despite knowing that a village guardian was protecting it. Declaring himself as the hemp-harvesting beggar Hongyun, the man sends out tremendous waves of aura. Not even the two-faced physician Yom predicted something like it. Hearing the word guardian, the scumbags turn to Yom, stating that they were supposed to be dealing with weaklings and not a guardian-level threat among the beggars. Yom doesn't get why a guardian is here either. While they're busy questioning who or why, the old man prepares himself, stating that he'll count to 10. Right now, all he cares about is killing the scumbag of a Dr. Yom. So while aura farming with his simple staff, he warns the henchmen to make the right choice and leave while they still can. His countdown begins, but interestingly, while this is happening, Mujin carefully notes that even a basic roar coming from the Guardian was enough to paralyze them in fear. Jusan comes up to emphasize that he must run away now. This is a shocking instruction out of nowhere, but Jusan insists that he run away, even going as far as to help him get out of the stream. He wants the physician to run as far away as possible from here and to report back to the village, even though it's a burdensome task. The countdown continues as our boy begins to question what's the big issue, or why he needs to run in the beginning. He was standing next to supreme martial artists so they could handle the threat easily, but suddenly, Juzan expresses that he doesn't even know what the pinnacle realm is, implying that he's an amateur. This revelation really changes the dynamic of the situation because now, it seems like the odds are roughly even. Juzan explains that he and his master will take on these scumbags in a fight. On the opposing side, Yom smacks his men to fight, believing that they can easily wipe out 2 beggars and a physician. The old man's count reaches 4 as his body trembles. The fact that he's going down this route implies one thing, and it's that he's willing to go out fighting. That's the impression left in Mujin's eyes, who fails to understand the logic behind a beggar choosing to sacrifice himself so much. With the stakes raised higher, he turns to Jusan, insisting they all run together, believing that the eccentric physician will destroy these clowns as long as they reach the village. However, Jusan strongly rejects this approach, grabbing onto the physician's body. He declares that it's going to be impossible to protect the physician while they're on the move, so the only logical choice is for him to make it back to him and protect the village. The tale of the village is profoundly sad too. You see, all their lives, these guys had to beg to get by, but the people always treated each other with kindness. The Guardian's count reaches 6, while Jusan is out here reminiscing the time his master told him that they must fight for the villagers' sake at some point. Side note, I love how this man is out here spilling lore in between a 10-second countdown. On the 7th count, Yom sends his men to go ahead and kill them while they still can, believing that running away won't get rid of their gambling debt. Seeing the men advance, the guardian scans their moves with his eyes, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Sensing danger, Jusan lifts our boy, begging the physician not to resist. In the final moment, Mujin is tossed the F away like he's some kind of bird about to mature and fly. As he's being flung away, Jusan roars at him to just focus on running. The last thing Mujin sees is the incoming sight of the attackers, his mind wondering what will become of his friends. He even ponders to try and help them in this fight, knowing that their opponents are weak too. Right as the two parties are about to engage in their clash, the physician ultimately concludes that they'll actually stand a chance of winning if they fight together. But suddenly, Mujin's expression turns to shit when he sees one of the assailants whipping out his sword. He was trying to hunt down the physician, but Jusan quickly tackled him, allowing our boy to fall into the stream. Juzin, being the ultimate wingman, stood his ground until he saw the physician leap out and escape. Some time passes as Mujin's legs carry him all the way through the forest. This time, he believes that he's making the right choice by running and fulfilling a final request entrusted to him. Right now, passing on the important message is more crucial than anything, but that's the thing that's also bothering him. You see, Mujin can't stomach the frustration of running away and leaving his friends to die. The grimming reality is that Jusan and Honggyun will be torn to pieces and shoved into the hole, while the best he could do is run with his tail between his legs. Unfortunately, he's helpless to do anything when he's a beginner martial artist himself. A panting Mujin stops to realize that he would never resort to running if he was as powerful as his master. In his mind, he views the brave beggars as equally worthy of respect. He knows that both the beggars made a choice to stay and fight, even if they weren't top-tier martial artists. This is the part that's really pissing him off. Adamant in his resolve, Mujin looks back with a determined face, hinting that he'll face his fears. Grunting and panting uphill, Mujin races his way back, his eyes steeled with determination. The situation reminds him of the time he saved a kid from being bullied by other children in the sect. Even though he himself got his ass kicked black and blue that day, Mujin felt a feeling of pride instead of focusing on the pain. Standing up to injustice was always his style. Right now, he's fueled with a bunch of thoughts trying to intimidate him. Some part of Mujin wants the fight to be already over, but one thing's for certain. He thinks that if he runs away here, then he'd remain a coward for the rest of his life by regretting this decision. I think there's a lesson here to face your fears, because there's nothing more frightening than regret. Back to the scene of the fight. Luckily, our boy has reached a crucial moment. The beggars are holding their ground, despite being severely injured. Watching quietly, the physician wonders what he should do. Both of the beggars are surrounded and can't keep up. Their opponents, on the other hand, are getting cockier than ever. The sword fighter rushes to kill the blue-haired beggar. His blade slashes the stick with brutal impact. Even though the stick maintains its integrity, Jusan is staggered and leaves an opening to his side. The assailant swings his sword from the side with the intention of making a Gojo Kit Kat out of the guy. Thankfully, Jusan ducks with a JoJo pose and survives it. His opponent is particularly impressed by his reflexes because Jusan is holding up really well for being just a beggar. However, it only prompts the scumbag to speed up the rate of his swings and movements in order to overwhelm him. Jusan can't block everything as cracks begin to appear in his moves, causing him to get cut. While barely holding his own, the guardian roars at him to get back up and fight. Finding the old man distracted, his opponent cheap shots him. But I'm telling you all, this old man is moving differently because he still manages to dodge. The guardian tucks and rolls to maintain his distance, while his axe-wielding opponent reflects on how boring it is to fight someone playing dirty. In response, the panting guardian wisely states that it's a whole lot better than being dead, and his methods are a lot less evil than them. The arrogant henchman thinks it's not an issue because they'll still kill both of them here. He even paints the picture of chopping Hongyun's disciple into pieces to use as a fertilizer. His disturbing words aren't enough to distract the village guardian, who spots a stick just behind. Meanwhile, Jusan is being overpowered slowly. The village guardian stands his ground, refusing to give up. While his assailant is rushing to attack, the old man hastens to grab the stick. His opponent fails to connect a swing, but unfortunately Hongyun fails to grab the stick as well. This is a cause for concern, because Hongyun keeps getting distracted by Jusan's side of things. In an opportune moment, he grabs some dirt off the ground while evading his opponent. Fueled with his love for his disciple, Hongyun chucks dirt against his opponent. Even though the guy dodged, the attack serves as nothing more than a distraction, allowing the guardian to latch onto his body. This is dangerous, because now the guy can easily swing his axe at the old man's figure. Blood spurts out in the distance, causing a worried Jusan to look back. The reality is true, the axe really did connect. But in this moment, the old man unleashes the last of his internal energy, roaring his disciple's name with all of his might. The scene is heartbreaking to watch, because yet another axe swing is lodged into the old man's back. Despite his pain, the guardian roars at his disciple to use this opportunity to return the favors of the villagers. In the very next second, the guy is already on the move in the air. Meanwhile, the old guardian has endured numerous stab wounds on his back as part of his sacrificial plan. Jusan's about to attack, when the other sword fighter tries to jump in. But unexpectedly, a stone is smashed in his damn face. Mujin made the right move coming out when it counted most. Deploying his ultimate technique, the beggar ferociously smashes the powerful stick into the guy's head, probably breaking his skull in the process. Just one attack is enough for him to get fully knocked out and tumble down alongside his master. The physician takes notice of the bloodied stick, meaning the job is done. The other assailant tries to strike the physician down, highlighting that it would have been wise to just run away. Promising to chop his limbs, the guy lunges to strike Mujin. But then out of nowhere, a heroic figure appears in front of him. It's his master, the eccentric physician, coming in with a solid clutch. Without even looking at the guy, we see him sliced to pieces. I'm starting to think there's hardly a scene where this man doesn't flex his aura. The master is proud of his student for coming this far. The situation may be resolved, but it was done so at the cost of Hongyun. The poor old man is grieved by his only disciple, while Lee Chung asks if the henchmen are the masterminds behind everything. Mujin quickly explains that it's actually the scumbag Yom who planned everything. I kid you not, this man literally flash steps and appears right behind him out of thin air. Lee Chung interrogates the lousy physician, questioning the purpose of the plague. Thanks to hearing him spill the beans, Mujin uproariously reveals that this bastard did it all for the money. However, something about the situation doesn't seem right to the martial artist, who thinks there has to be a deeper reason beyond money. His disciple is shocked to hear this, while Yom agrees and begs for mercy, even promising to throw in the most valuable medicine in the village. He wonders if the man knows about the black peony herb. Its very name stuns the boy, who recalls that this herb blossoms in a place concentrated with negative energy. Even though it's not as revered as the 10,000-year-old snow ginseng or even the grand rejuvenation pill, it's just as famous as them. It's actually considered the flower of heroes, growing in the corpses of the battlefield. And it just so happens that physician Yom is prepared to hand it over as long as his life is spared in the process. Both the disciple and master are stunned when they see the blooming peony herb up in the distance. Its very sight confirms that this guy isn't lying. An even more pissed off Mujin wants to beat this man for giving up the herb because he's a slimeball who wants to save his own life. However, Lee Chung pulls the boy back, expressing that the deal is different from a mere exchange. In fact, the real reason is because any skilled physician would know that trying to obtain the peony flower will result in one's death because of the deathly chi. Goddamn, this man was genuinely about to pull a last-minute clutch if he wasn't exposed like that. Yum's sneaky plan is torn apart, as Lee Chung reveals that the flower is known for feeding off of death, which is one reason why this guy went ahead with his plan to gather corpses. His ultimate plan was to use the villagers' dead bodies to feed the flowers even more, nurturing them so he could use them in another plan. It was a cunning plan, a really well thought out one even against a strong martial artist. But Yom still clings to his helplessness and shares that he has a method to extract the flower without harm. But Lee Chung is thoroughly intrigued hearing him say all of that, because it seems like Yom is way too knowledgeable to belong in a tiny village. The quivering physician shares that he picked up on the harvesting technique on his own. But to everyone's shock, Lee Chung casually picks out the peony flower, declaring that he's not the average person either. Bro really said he is built differently, goddamn. Even the physician can't believe how anyone could survive after touching the flower with their bare hands. But before this scumbag could finish his words, his head was chopped off like a ball. It hits the ground as the esteemed martial artist channels pure Escanor energy, stating that he'll be the one to decide who lives or dies. The master is pissed off with the alarming number of shoddy physicians popping out of nowhere. He thinks it's shameful for them to call themselves one simply because of their knowledge of medicine. Meanwhile, Mujin is genuinely worried for his master's sake, seeing as he casually grabbed the flower without any trouble. The master turns to hilariously reveal that he didn't earn the title of an eccentric physician through gambling, which is a long way of saying, bitch, I know what I'm doing. Anyway, Lee Chung intends to get rid of the poison from the corpses, so he wants Mujin to grab Jusan and back away for a bit. So he does exactly that, and watches his master enter a meditative stance. Mujin observes carefully as his master covers himself with dark energy, sucking all of the deathly chi from the rotting ground and pulling it towards him. The boy is astonished to note that the poison really is being siphoned away from the corpses and the soil. Those trails of darkness are pulled with a ferocious force. Mujin can still smell the ugly stench. The deathly chi warps up into a storm of darkness, until eventually it begins dissipating around Lee Chung. All of it vanished, prompting the boy to believe that finally it was all over. Meanwhile, his master wonders if Mujin was able to realize what it really meant to become an expert at chi meditation. The same pungent black peony flower now radiates with a beautiful white color, showing that it's purified. His master offers the flower to the boy, explaining that he's already gotten rid of the poison, so it's safe for consumption. Mujin thanks him, while his master believes it's a fitting reward for the child for figuring out the entire scheme. However, something about the situation makes him feel sad. Mujin takes one look at the red beggar, who is still weeping his master's loss. The kind boy shares that he doesn't deserve such an object, arguing that all he did was throw one stone and merely returned because he didn't want to remain a coward. The word deserve is an interesting score we attach to our self-worth sometimes. Playing the disciple's own game, Lee Chung points to Jusan's face, questioning if the boy can explain his expression. In the eyes of the great martial artist, he thinks it's infinitely more courageous to return to a fight instead of taking a fight from the start. It goes to show that someone learned from their mistake and corrected their path at once. He even wisely states that anyone who wouldn't run in the same circumstance would be called a fool. Beautifully, Mujin's master allows him the freedom to run away in fear, as long as he can return to where he should be. That's life, because ultimately it's the final moment that decides whether one lived up to their role or not. Those powerful words shake the boy's heart, while the eccentric physician is starting to think he must be boring the kid with his wise words. Funnily enough, Mujin literally eats the flower without waiting another second. His master screams at him for eating the flower right away, which confuses his disciple because clearly he was told the poison is gone. In the same breath, Mujin's body is stunned with the effects. In the next scene, they're walking their way back while the young physician expresses great pain. His master thinks he's a dumbass for consuming a cultivating medicine without using any technique for it. In order to consume it, he should have performed the black tortoise cultivation method first. So now, he's got to make up for it and properly manage his chi to make up for it. An exhausted Mujin begs his master to show it again. And well, this man ends up dropping a damn essay in a single breath. It's actually one of the biggest dialogue boxes I've ever seen. And somehow Mujin is able to follow his words, though Li Chung tells him to shut up and keep focusing more. Little by little, the young disciple actually succeeds in channeling his chi, impressing his master, who thinks that the boy will be fine before they even return to the village. In fact, he's got even higher hopes for the child. Once again, instead of focusing, Bro starts yapping about the glorious chi of the black peony flower, causing his master to roar at him again for being overconfident. You see, he's yet to make this chi a part of his own body, so he needs to perform the cultivation technique repeatedly to get it right. Since our boy can move more comfortably now, Li Chung instructs him to assist the beggars. All of a sudden, Mujin acts like he's sick again. That's how it went until they finally reach the village in the next scene, explaining to them everything that happened. They even brought the corpses of Yom and the other henchmen. Mujin gladly reports that the disease will no longer haunt the villagers, and a medicinal brew will restore them within 3 days' time. He even thanks the two beggars for being the heroes responsible for dealing with the bad guys. Even though the villagers show their appreciation for the beggars, ultimately, Jusan is disappointed and still grieving. The same villagers leave him and cover the physicians in praise. However, the astute master knows what's going on and takes a sad look at the boy, who has no one covering him all the same. Instead, he simply turns back and decides to leave the village. A while later, we zoom out to see the village flourishing again. The next morning, Mujin has prepared the brew, and he's also focusing on his training. The boy wants to mimic his master's stance, only to get kicked by the same man. Li Chung thinks it's reckless to make a mess in front of the medicine. In any case, Li Chung declares that it's about time they wrap up and leave, even though his disciple thinks it's reckless to leave so many patients around. More importantly, Bro is relishing the life of a hero and wants to stay for a few more days to enjoy the fun. Village fine shit is keeping him around. His master reminds the boy that they never intended on coming to this village in the first place. It's only because of Jusan that they stopped by. Speaking of the red beggar, Mujin wonders where he went. Li Chung knows that he probably went to bury Hong Yun and is probably starving around the same place. It doesn't make sense to Mujin. Why would someone starve themselves when they are directly responsible to save the village? But apparently it's part of the beggar's sect. After taking a life, they grieve because they can no longer hold the status of a beggar after killing a martial artist. Instead, Mujin realizes that Jusan probably thinks he's some kind of threat to his village. The kid wonders what he'll do, and Li Chung replies that it's something he'll have to decide on his own. That is the reality everyone has to face after taking a person's life. Shortly after this, both of the physicians bid their farewells to the villagers and continue on their journey. Navigating away from the forest, they find themselves drawn to a graveyard. There are a bunch of mounds around here, and just in the distance is a grave with 2 sticks next to it. Offering their utmost respect and prayers, the physicians do their duty. Mujin notices his master is still praying and suddenly spots Jusan, who appears to be more stable than ever. He thanks them for helping them out and wishes them a safe journey. Knowing that the guy probably hasn't even eaten a meal, Mujin rushes to hand him some food. The good thing is, Jusan intends to stay in Jewel Village as part of his duty and belonging. He knows that he's going to be in a pinch, but part of being a beggar is always knowing how to survive, so he's okay with that. In Mujin's mind, his master's words ring clear, and he fears the worst. Suddenly, the boy makes a surprising proposal, urging Jusan to tag alongside them. The destination doesn't matter to a beggar after all. Mujin thinks that Hong Yun would have wanted the same for him, but right as the boy reaches for his master's opinion, the eccentric physician is nowhere to be found. The kid takes the beggar's hand and rushes towards his master. Li Chung is known for being impatient and quick on the draw. In any case, the party of 2 has just expanded to a party of 3. More importantly, Mujin expresses his interest in learning the sword, which means a training arc is underway. As for the clueless Jusan, the guy doesn't even know where they're going. Li Chung hilariously calls him a genius, because not even his own disciple has asked him once about where they're headed. We get a final shot of Hong Yun's name carved behind in the sticks, coloring him as the hero of the village. The eccentric physician dubs Luo Yang as their ultimate destination. In the following sequence, we dive right into the training arc, where the master explains the purpose of the sword is only to find its way to a heart. In sword mastery, that's the role of a sword. There are many different techniques highlighting its purpose. One of them is called wasp, which is pointed precise stabs. There's also a form beautifully known as the ivy vines, known for spiraling strikes. A dominant form is the apex. You might be thinking that the apex is less flashy than the others, but only in the next second after the slash, Mujin and the others are amazed by the enormous sphere of internal energy it unleashed. The master turns back to his disciples, wondering if they can pull this off. It's such an outrageous thing to say that both of them look at him with the dead-ass expression, before Mujin erupts by saying it's impossible to copy what he just did. The impatient master thinks it's enough for a month's worth of training. Meanwhile, Mujin is spitting out facts when he says it's clearly impossible to destroy entire trees after a 1-month training plan. While they're arguing back and forth, Jusan is probably regretting his life. In fact, the master asks him to come over and give it a try. Both students try to mimic the apex form, and though it seems like they're improving in the eyes of the master, our boy genuinely can't feel the difference at all. The master instructs the kid to try once more, correcting his posture and tweaking his form. From this distance, Jusan feels happy for them in a period of learning. The young physician rants out to his master for being so strict after a month's training. Meanwhile, Lee Chung reminds the child to remember his manners. Their brutal training regimen currently consists of practicing palm strikes in the morning, using purple cloud steps in the afternoon, and then sparring using the heart-piercing swords in the evening. That's the routine these guys have strictly followed for a month, and so far Jusan is kicking our boy's ass, having won all 30 fights. The beggar reflects that even after a month's worth of observing the two, he finds their relationship to be stranger than usual. Sometimes these two bond really well, while other times they're meaning to get under each other's skin, rage-baiting the shit out of the other. Hilariously, even now, Lee Chung makes fun of the kid's lousy-looking arm. One could say that these two treat everything with humor, but hidden underneath that humor is a deep respect they have for the other person. While they're mumbling about, Jusan finds a feeling of familiarity and belongingness, remembering that he was privileged to have a master like Mujin too. By the end of the training session, the beggar suggests they have dinner, which Lee Chung uses as ammunition to scold our boy even more. Unfortunately, the trio officially comes to an end in the very next scene. Jusan offers his utmost gratitude to the ones who helped him. The eccentric physician reminds the kid to change his identity to become a part of Chongqing, because it will be problematic if someone here discovers that he belongs to the Jewel Village. After all, despite any reason, the beggar committed a murder, and that won't bode well for him. Jusan bows in respect and parts ways, bidding them farewell amongst the bustling crowd before disappearing within. Mujin is left with a disappointing look on his face, while his master is quick to bring it up. The thing is, the boy hasn't been able to bond with anyone fondly after leaving Sichuan, and Jusan filled that void for him. Hilariously, his master teases him that the real reason is that he lost 30 duels against the guy. Anyone would be mad after taking 30 straight L's in a row. Mujin shouts at his master, who uses Batman's techniques to vanish again. Lee Chung doesn't want to hear his yapping and tells the kid to get the move on. The duo arrives at the Feng family blacksmith. They want to borrow the forge for a while, and in exchange the blacksmith can witness the raw talent of the child. It's an outrageous offer, completely ridiculous for anyone to hear. And yet the eccentric physician hypes up his disciple as the most talented child of the land. Mujin is practically dying from embarrassment and thinks no one's gonna accept the lousy offer. The blacksmith thinks for a moment and surprisingly accepts, much to our boy's shock. Right away, his master shoves him to start working. The blacksmith doesn't even mind if they borrow materials for the work, hoping to get a good show. Lee Chung is having a kick out of the situation, while Mujin is annoyed and wonders what's the need to make a sword all of a sudden. Bro thinks he's being treated like some kind of prized circus monkey he can use for his own gains. The eccentric physician tasks the kid to focus on making the scythe for the blacksmith first. Then he outlines the conditions of their deal. After all, he was promised to receive the boy's smithing services in exchange for teaching him. Basically, this is like Mujin paying his monthly fees for being tutored. Still, the problem is, he's never made a scythe before in his life. Mujin fires up the forge, grabbing the old blacksmith's attention. At first, he tries ignoring the process, but then he hears the perfect hammering noise, one that dances in tune with the rain like an instrument of its own. Even though he hasn't even seen the boy's work, the blacksmith is confident that Mujin will grow up to be an excellent smith. The old man dozes off, and in the very next scene, his eyes widen in shock at the creation of a perfect scythe. He can't believe that this is the boy's first ever attempt at making a scythe. Mujin wonders if it's going to be an adequate form of payment, but the passionate blacksmith snatches the weapon and immediately uses it to cut bamboo. His precise strike gently cuts the bamboo, highlighting his skill as a martial master as well. Hilariously, bro yeets the fuck away after his swing. Blacksmith Feng left without a word, but Lee Chung is surprised and tells the boy to continue with his work, ominously stating that they'll be here soon. Mujin doesn't know what's going on, while his master corrects himself, stating that those people are already here. Figures of black reveal their weapons, showcasing suspicious intent. Their leader is Blacksmith Feng, who dares to question how the boy was able to forge something like this. That one single scythe managed to slice some of the best weapons made by the blacksmiths of the Chongqing territory. So now all of them have set their sets on him. Mujin's scythe is so perfect that it didn't even chip after enduring abuse. It's as if cutting is the easiest task in the world with it. The experienced smiths humbly demand to be taught the same skills, hoping to obtain the boy's talent for themselves. They just want a front seat to whatever he's making, hoping that he's going to show them how to make all kinds of weapons. Mujin is at a loss for words while his master quickly chimes in, extending his hand. This man knows how to monetize his disciple's skill and demands 2 silver ingots for each and every spectator. The smiths are confused at first, but the moment they hear about the boy's next goal to make a sword, they throw up the ingots like it's nothing. As for Jusan, he's on his way, revisiting his master's hometown. He remembers Hongyun's words and wonders where the hemp field is. Surprisingly, he spots a bunch of people underneath the bridge. The scene fills Jusan up with emotion, recalling his master's image. He continues walking forward in order to find someone who knows about Hongyun. The tavern owner welcomes the kid inside, assuring him that they always welcome disciples of the beggar's sect. Though Jusan leaves quietly, he finds himself rather surprised to hear that no one seems to know about his master at all. He thinks that maybe it's because of the passage of time, as it's really been 20 years. From the looks of things, the sect is much different from the stories his master left him with. It doesn't add up that a tavern owner is a member of the sect, for instance. For example, the same man jumped the gun and asked for an entrance fee for Jusan to officially become part of the sect. It's the funniest shit ever because in order to become a beggar, you must pay a fee, which is unreal. At this point, Jusan is starting to think that no one on this street would know about his master. So he continues his vexing search, asking about the hemp harvest beggar, but no one seems to know about the four knotted sect members. Jusan didn't meet any good leads from the people living under the bridge, and is starting to lose hope in his search. Suddenly, one man quickly passes by him, hoping to shelter himself from the cold. As a last-ditch effort, Jusan decides to ask this guy, inquiring about the hemp harvest beggar with 4 knots. To his shock, this particular man seems to have knowledge about Hongyun. Jusan is glad at last to find a lead, while the old man asks to confirm if it's really him. Jusan is really happy to get a lead until the same man tells him that he's under a grave misunderstanding. You see, Hongyun wasn't even a 4-knotted beggar to begin with, but rather a single knot one. In reality, he couldn't ever advance to 2 knots. A martial artist is only granted 3 knots, implying that the old man lied to Jusan all his life. Instead, Hongyun apparently spent his time leisurely in the hemp fields, which earned him his name. Interestingly, many other people came to look for him in the same place because he stole something important and ran for his life. Hongyun is told that Granny Yang might know something about his master's story. Jusan, on the other hand, is devastated. The kid's entire life has been a lie. Jusan stares at the stupid knot-noted belt, tears streaming down his eyes while the thunderous storm reflects his rage. His hands quiver as he starts undoing the knots, cursing at his imbecile of a master who deserved to die. After all, Hongyun gave him his first knot for merely withstanding hunger, and a second one for merely recovering from a fever. That's not how things work, as each knot requires a set of skills. For Jusan's case, the kid kept earning knots for basic reasons. That's actually the main reason why they couldn't do shit against Yom's men, because all of the techniques were fake and shitty. Jusan roars up to the heavens, realizing that everything he ever knew was a damn lie. He's grateful that his dumb master died like a dog in the end for lying all of his life. Venting out all of his frustration, Jusan is about to throw away his belt into the water, but suddenly collapses in his spirit, admitting that his master wasn't a guardian, let alone anything at all. It doesn't add up why a crappy beggar like that gave up his life to protect him. Jusan plunges his fist into the water and slowly lets go of the belt. His eyes pour down tears and his face is pathetic as it can be. The belt is lost and he's last seen crying under the storm. Let's shift the perspective back to our boy, who has been working diligently all day. Mujin is done for his shift, but his spectators want to see more. Thankfully, Blacksmith Feng is there to speak up for the boy's case, believing that it's best to let the kid rest for a while. All further questions are postponed until the next session. Suddenly, Mujin sees a familiar face. It's the beggar and his friend Jusan, who looks like he's been through shit. Well, it takes a while for the poor guy to explain his story and his findings about his master. Mujin doesn't know how to react, and his first question is if his dear friend is hungry or not. Surprisingly, he learns that Jusan was given food by a beggar child under the bridge, who was kind enough to let him eat. Even though he refused to eat at first, something came over Jusan, and he decided to make the girl happy by eating her food. Instantly, Mujin slams his back for taking food from a beggar girl of all people. Our boy urges them to leave at once, which makes his friend question where they're even headed. Mujin shines a smile at him and states that they're gonna cleanse him for good. That night, he takes his friend to a nice restaurant. It's a luxury experience, one that Jusan is completely unfamiliar with. Bro is dazzled while Mujin tells him to eat until they're dead. They ended up chugging down food with confidence, only to become fire-breathing dragons because they forgot about the Asian spice levels. Even the beautiful musician is getting annoyed by their ruckus, but at least homeboy Jusan is happy. They ramble around, with Mujin even giving an impression of his master. The night continues with the two friends enjoying their heart out, cozying around and acting like complete clowns. By the end, their bellies are full and they're drunk as hell. Jusan is starting to worry about the payment process, while our boy makes fun of him for being a stupid beggar. Here's the funniest part. Mujin explains that he didn't bring any money along either, causing Jusan to scream at the top of his lungs at him, because now they're gonna have to pay Diddy with something else. Jusan reminds him that the place is run by the beggars sect, so they gotta pay up. But our boy can't stop goofing around and acts like he's safe from all the damage, because he's the disciple of the eccentric physician. Still, Jusan is worried like shit and tells him that they're in some serious trouble. The whole situation cracks our boy up in a loud laughter, heard by everyone in the restaurant. In the flash of a second, Mujin disappears from his spot and teleports right behind the pretty lady. Bro whips out a blade and says he's gonna pay them properly. Something tells me that maybe he's taking his master's teachings a bit too literally. Mujin's knife breaks into a clean swing, while Jusan is starting to get worried for his recklessness. The other drunk folks are enjoying the show, believing that the kid is completely drunk and going ballistic. The staff questions what this guy is trying to do. Meanwhile, Mujin is out here moving like Jason from Friday the 13th. This man literally glares back with the most ominous-looking evil side-eye I have ever seen. His aura is threatening enough for the staff to call the guards. Little bro is out here basically saying, "Ref, do something." Meanwhile, Mujin continues being a reckless fool. The guards order him to come down quickly without making a fool out of himself. But our boy stays there, disregarding them like they're nothing. Just when they're about to come close, Mujin spills his drink in a swerving motion, revealing his majestic masterpiece. He carved a sculpture thanks to his expert knife work. The drunk Mujin wonders if the guards want to disturb him from paying. They tell the lady to keep the music up, and much to her annoyance, she follows up with their demands. Mujin continues to carve a masterpiece with colorful strokes of his knife, tantalizing the spectators. When he's done with the blade work, he smashes the mold, revealing his incredibly detailed masterpiece of the thousand-handed Buddha. The statue is majestic, and a brilliant form of payment for the food he had. The disciple actually picked up a nice lesson from his master Li Chung, who told him that he was always treasured for his skills and gratitude, no matter where he went. And just like him, Mujin's skills are out there earning favors from everyone all around. The kid is revered and merely calls it a doodle. He follows up with an artistic masterpiece, spending 2 hours on a beautifully carved dragon. Let me correct myself, it's an absolute badass dragon. Mujin receives a bundle of dumplings as a free payment. Later, Jusan meets up with the beggars under the bridge and gives them the delicious dumplings, patting Sosun for her consideration. Mujin, being the good guy he is, feels happy for his friend finally smiling. The next day, both Jusan and Mujin think that they should take the day off instead of heading to the tavern like usual. Neither of them wanted to go because of the rain anyway. Suddenly, a voice roars the words Hongju-san outside their hotel. When they look outside, they find So Samgu, who reports that Sosun has gone missing. Even though she always told them where she'd go, she never bothered to venture far. Samgu suspects that the river bandits are involved and have something to do with it. In fact, these bandits are responsible for kids going missing all the time. At first, people thought the bandits were gone for good, but some witnesses have started taking note of the bandits kidnapping the children. Samgu reports how these bandits offer the kids to certain martial artists, who further use them in all sorts of inhumane ways. The very thought of poor Sosun meeting the same fate or enduring harm spirals Samgu's emotions. But Jusan assures the man that he's up for the job, and he's going to look for her alongside someone trustworthy. Hearing this makes the beggar really happy, and he offers his thanks to Jusan. In the next scene, Jusan goes up to explain the situation to the beggar's sect. To his shock, these people aren't even ready to act even when a situation like this demands them to act. The tavern owner explains that it's risky to fight the river bandits without any clear proof. Not just that, the upcoming season is also problematic. This behavior of the tavern owner is actually completely opposite to the way he was treating him before. Jusan wonders if it's because he no longer possesses the knots on him. The tavern owner understands that Jusan doesn't know about Chongqing, so he explains how the rainy season pushes the beggar's sect to remain on high alert. It's even worse for this year because the rain is more intense. He allows Jusan to make an observation for himself, explaining how if it rains for even another 2 days, they'll be at risk of enduring a flood. This is bad because people end up losing their homes because of flooding, and deaths are no different. To prevent minimal damage, they make sure to deploy each member of the sect to put up sufficient barricades. This is the reason they can't really supply any members to help the rescue mission of Sosun or to face the river bandits. The whole thing is disappointing for Jusan, who is left with a faint promise of the higher-ups intervening. After that conversation, Jusan explains everything to Samgu, who curses out the bastards for being untrustworthy people who treat them as sub-tier humans. There's no way for Samgu to trust the words of the tavern owner. Poor Samgu remarks that the sect members will be so busy stacking a barricade that they'll forget about their real goal, which is to protect the people in the first place. Jusan tries to reason and thinks that the sect members need to have some kind of justice behind their cause. To that, Samgu roars that even the river bandits as well as demonic criminals are also martial artists, so it doesn't excuse them for having a sense of justice. Then there's the fact that the beggar's sect has never confronted the river bandits in the past 10 years, which is why they're not going to risk themselves for one little girl either. Those guys are people pretending to be beggars. Samgu outs them for pretending and keeping their status. His words just now ignite a flame in Jusan's heart, reminding him of his master's words. At this point, he's royally ticked off by all the beggars lying around and making him feel guilty for it. Meanwhile, Samgu is consoled by his friends. Jusan internalizes that he's done way more than he should have and shouldn't intervene any further. He walks away thinking that his role ended after he left the village, and even that shitty duty was all a lie. Right as he's passing by, a certain someone goes past him wearing a straw hat. This person looks around and calls out Jusan, stopping him dead in his tracks. Granny Yang questions if he's the kid looking for the hemp harvest beggar and wonders what relationship he shares with Jong-gyun. This is the final push, because even the old man's name was a lie. It wasn't Hong-gyun but Jong-gyun. I'm starting to feel bad for Jusan at this point. He calls his master nothing more than a petty criminal. But the old granny hardly thinks like that, and argues that Jong-gyun would never steal something. Suddenly, the granny remembers that Jong-gyun did steal a certain person, adding another layer of mystery regarding the old man. The mention of stealing a person really shifts the dynamic here. The old granny confirms her words, stating that 20 years ago, an important conflict took place in Chongqing between the secular and traditional factions. The leader of the secular faction was someone called the Red-Faced Old Beggar. Opposing him was the vice leader of the headquarters, called the Willow Hill Beggar, who belonged to the traditional faction. Each faction held its own views, and while it wasn't considered a big deal whether a beggar wore old or new attire, small things started piling up and grew seeds of doubt and hatred among both sides. This eventually caused a gigantic conflict, resulting in the death of the Willow Hill Beggar. The conflict exploded even further after his death, because it was shortly after that day that the traditional faction was driven out of the Chongqing region. It was also that very same day that the old man, the hemp harvest beggar, ran with the son of the Willow Hill Beggar. This actually makes sense. The sacred treasure he stole was the son of their hero. Preparing himself, Jusan asks for the kid's real name. It is revealed that the boy is called Hong Jung, but the granny thinks that it's pointless to talk to him because he doesn't even seem to know the Willow Hill beggar's son. She takes her leave and leaves a message for the hemp harvest beggar, which conveys that she's doing fine. Before she can finish her sentence, Jusan storms out and disappears. Again, bro is out here overwhelmed with emotions, piecing together one truth with another. Everything about the old man was a lie, and it just doesn't add up why. Jusan has understandable frustration and is skeptical of other lies too. He stares into the river, plunging his hands inside in an effort to reclaim what he lost. Jusan tries his best to search and plow the water, looking for the knots he threw away. Despite his best efforts, it's all futile. All he can dig out are a bunch of weeds. All those knots, the one he threw away in frustration, are gone now. But this man doesn't give up. He decides to dive right into the waters for himself, emerging shortly after. His determination is shown every time he goes in and out of the water. Jusan swims deep, holding his breath to the best of his ability while he looks for the 4 knots of the Guardian. This time, instead of resenting his master, he recognizes the duty entrusted to him behind those knots. That's how the old man made his way to Jules village after all, and nurtured the young child, treating him like his son and feeding him well. He even trained the boy. All of that act was done so that he could protect one person. All of it was done to protect Jusan himself. His master gave away his own life for that cause, becoming an example of a guardian. It is with that determination that he keeps on going, until he finally catches sight of the knots on the riverbed. Holding it with both his hands, he plunges it out, barely maintaining his breath anymore. Jusan hurries back to the top. His vision is starting to fade, and he's at the verge of losing consciousness. At the very cusp, he blacks out while seeing Mujin's figure reaching out for him. Our boy successfully manages to save his friend's life and pulls him out, dragging them outside the water. Mujin reclaims his breath, roaring at his idiot friend for taking every opportunity to ruin his damn clothes. He thinks Jusan is stupid for taking a swim in this insane weather. But despite experiencing a near-death situation, Jusan clutches to the knots and simply laughs. His laughter turns maniacal, freaking out even our boy. The beggar asks his friend for one last favor, which is rich in Mujin's eyes, who literally saved his life a moment ago. Bro is like, I saved you from drowning and you're already asking for more. Filled with brimming hope, Jusan proclaims that they must rescue Sosin themselves from the bandits. The whole thing shocks Mujin, who thinks he picked a tedious mission for them. Our boy even recommends doing easier favors instead. In the next scene, we get to see the sect members doing the best they can to lay out barricades to prevent flooding. The water is getting out of control because of the rain, while Mujin and Jusan are spying on the sect members. Our boy is starting to reconsider agreeing for the favor, especially when they don't even have a plan in place for it. Jusan casually denies having any strategy, which is downright stupid because the two of them combined can't just deal with dozens of bandits at once. The beggar thinks that they should simply stay low and confirm Sosin's status before heading out. This is a plan that Mujin agrees with, so they quickly start looking around for her. There's a structure up front, and Jusan suspects that she must be detained inside. He recommends sneaking their way in, only for Mujin to call him out for the most idiotic plan of the century. He scolds him for failing to consider the color of their outfits, which would easily give their location away. The beggar recommends they roll around in the dirt to blend their clothes with the environment, and he even thinks stripping naked is a good idea. Yup, stripping naked to hide from your enemies is definitely a smart strategy. 100% no cap. Suddenly, both of them hear 2 members doing patrol duty and talking shit about their job. I mean, us bro us, but keep that a secret between you and me. They're complaining, but they're still happy they don't get to be yelled at by their leader this way. Meanwhile, our dynamic duo basically realizes they're absolutely fucked, a feeling mutually shared like they're on Bluetooth or something. The patrollers are armed with weapons, while Mujin is questioning what kind of bandits team even bothers having patrollers on their side. He thinks it's unwise to take a fight with them here. The whole situation makes him shiver in fear, and he's hoping to just stay put like a statue, waiting for them to pass. Unfortunately, those guys are supposed to cross over a bridge, so unless they've got really bad eyesight, there's no way they're gonna miss 2 intruders lurking close by. Mujin brainstorms and wonders if they should hide under the bridge, but disregards the plan thinking the 2 of them won't fit. He sees Jusan, who appears to be close to the bridge, gesturing out hand signs like he's in Naruto or something. The message is basically to direct Mujin to hide behind the rocks, while Jusan will go the other way. It's a solid plan because the sound of the rain will block out any noise they make. As dumb as Jusan is, he's still got a good head on his shoulders for when it really counts. I call cap though. The patrollers step foot onto the bridge, making their way past and checking their surroundings properly. Meanwhile, our duo is placed on each side, giving each other a thumbs up of approval. Our boy thinks they've nailed the job like a piece of cake, when suddenly this stupid fucker decides to go batshit crazy, exposing his location with a sneak attack from above. Ah yes, the almighty staff strike of 2 dogs, which will surely turn these guys into sushi. Surely that can't be a bad strategy, right? Well, bro's all-out ultimate attack is casually dodged by both patrollers by simply pressing X on the controller and moving 1 step back. Bro is devastated, questioning how he missed. Not like it wasn't the most obvious effing attack ever. That last part of his plan was completely something that Mujin missed, and now the patrollers are ready to kick their ass for it. Our boy is left with the impression that this fucker really does have room temperature IQ in every universe.